Statement weekend for the Tigers. We'll get to what statement was made 9 o'clock. Our college football conversation. John, you've been saying, wait for this. This is going to shift things. It happened.
Yeah, it happened. News dump on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Schools can now pay the athletes directly starting July 1st with a cap, $20 million, $20.5 million per athletic department, which means most will go to football, and then you got to decide what you're doing from there. As this continues to move forward, do you find yourself seeing this as a good thing, a bad thing, some of the unintended consequences? 248-539-9797. And I think John put it into a nice bow. 5 years down the road, seeing where this is headed, do you find yourself more or less invested in college sports? Let's get to Chris in Ypsilanti. Chris, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good to talk to you guys again.
You too.
What's up?
So, on the House settlement, I guess I'll split this up into the good, bad, and ugly. I think the bad is that, for some of these schools, they're operating in the red. The money has to come from somewhere. In all likelihood, it's probably going to come from you, the consumer, in the form of higher prices, higher concession prices, and maybe even the students in the form of higher tuition, which would be a real bummer. I think the ugly might surround the uncertainty for smaller programs, Jim, which what you alluded to. But there is, I think, a fair bit of good. So pre-House settlement, NIL was basically the wild, wild west. It was not clear if any of the contracts that students signed were enforceable. NIL, if you want to say providers or companies or booster programs, they wouldn't want to put anything in writing in case things fell through. So students were often walking a real tightrope, and then you would have disputes like Matthew Sluka at UNLV who had to quit because the money never showed up. With the House settlement, you do have not only the clearinghouse, which records and tracks and helps enforce all the NIL deals and allows people to put these deals into writing so that they're enforceable. But allowing the schools to contract NIL deals directly with the students gives the schools a fair bit of leeway that they didn't otherwise have previously, often in the form of multi-year agreements that are now enforceable by the school, and more creatively, some form of exclusive rights NIL deals, which I think what you'll find in 5-10 years that the player movement will slow down because the schools theoretically will be able to hold a student's NIL rights, obviously subject to certain limitations. You could, for example, if you can't negotiate a non-compete because they're not really enforceable in a lot of states, you might be able to negotiate a garden leave clause saying, yeah, you're free to transfer out whenever you want, but we're going to negotiate a cool-down period so that you can't offer your NIL rights on the next season, right? So you can disincentivize a lot of player movement. You can structure money a certain way to disincentivize player movement or incentivize players staying longer. So I think that kind of volatility will slow down because it'll provide regulation in the NIL market.
Well, that's needed. I mean, this needs to cool down.
Yeah, I mean, buyouts, all of that stuff will be a part of player agreements. I don't even want to call them contracts right now, but player agreements with collectives, and it because the clearinghouse is there, and I'm curious as to how that's going to operate, because who's to say what market value is? Market value is whatever you're willing to pay for whatever service it is. But if anything over $600 has to be gone through the clearinghouse, it will protect the student athlete as well as the university, because there has to be language that's acceptable in that agreement. And maybe that language is, how long is this agreement good for? What happens if the agreement is broken on either side? Who pays what?
It needs to be spelled out. We need some kind of guardrails with college athletics. Does this pave the way for guardrails?
It could.
And that's your selling
logic.
Point. Yeah.
But, I mean, we're talking about the NCAA. We don't know that they're going to use logic.
And you were very careful with contracts versus not contracts, because the schools, if they're contracts, now they're employees, and you could argue legally, right? Yeah. And then if enough employees want to gather up and unionize, it creates a whole different set of problems. And I'm not telling you they shouldn't unionize. What I'm telling you is it creates another set of problems that they'd have to sort out. It feels like as soon as you put out one fire, there's two more.
Yeah.
So let's get to Jason in Royal Oak. Jason, good morning.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I might cry because I'm just so upset about this. But I first heard about this, from after the Tigers game and after Mass at 6 o'clock on Sunday from Mark Ryan. But I really think this is unfortunate what we're doing. I have to disagree with the last caller. This is not going to add to guardrails for NIL. It's going to even make this more wild, wild west because businesses aren't going to be even reporting money that they give to students now. And this is even more separating, in my opinion, the haves from the have-nots. And I'm going to say the haves from have-nots. I'm talking about little universities, but I'm also talking about sports that people don't really, love, and what else was I going to say? I mean, Tom Petty talked about this. Rest in peace, Tom Petty. In the song "The Last DJ," people don't do things for love anymore. They're doing it now in the United States. It's just being commoditized. It's just for money, and I think that's so unfortunate. And it says a statement about our country. That's all I got to say. Love you guys. Take care. Bye.
Jason, I appreciate the emotion. I do. Well, Sean, what I would say though is commoditized. The people are being paid for their labor. I mean, these athletes put a lot of time into this. They demand the attention, the spotlight, the revenue that they are creating. That is, to me, a pursuit that is deserved.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing that will change is where are they going to get these resources from? Where are they taking them from? And what other programs, whether it's support programs for student athletes or actual sports, will be eliminated because they have to try and figure out how they're going to pay this $20 million, along with increased scholarship expense.
Yeah. Again, I think the players deserve to be paid. I think it's overdue. I think the NCAA's made so much money. That's also part of this announcement, John, is back pay.
Yeah,
There's a lot of money that's going to get sent. Now, only 10 years, sorry for your sake. But a lot of these guys are going to get paid retroactively because the NCAA was making millions off of their backs. So the pursuit of getting their fair shake is what has kicked this really into gear. And the problem is we don't have the guardrails, so it kind of operates out of control. We do need some sort of cap. I guess $20 million is the current cap.
It's the current cap in terms of revenue share.
But it
has nothing to do with NIL.
Exactly, which can still make up the gap or still make you number one or still fill in the gaps. We're not there yet. We still don't have contracts or guardrails on the transfer portal. And I love that player movement exists. You only have a finite time to play, but we got to have some kind of rules to play by. It's a mess.
It
is. That is the best way to sum it up.
Hopefully, this is a watershed moment where this leads to more rules, or at least rules that can be enforced, and they seem like they're going to support the college athletic system. It's not an amateur system, but it's going to support that and lead to more graduations. That's the whole point.
And competitive balance, I think, is the other thing that we want to see with this stuff, too. We don't want to see haves and have-nots and creating craters between most of the schools. All right, 9 o'clock hour, getting into Tiger baseball. It's 97.1.